Saint or sinner? Holy man or common criminal? Is Simon Purbeck a genuine medium with real powers, or a fake and a fraud? That is the question facing the jury in the case of Regina versus Purbeck. Simon Purbeck, self-styled founder of the Centre for the Study of the Spiritual Sciences, the man the newspapers have nicknamed the Wizard of West Walsham, is on trial at Fulchester Crown Court. He is alleged to have defrauded Mrs. Mary Wells out of over £40,000. Today is the last day of the trial. We shall not have long to wait for an answer to the question.
Where were you born, Miss Marcos?
Liverpool.
And how old are you?
34.
You said that you were a receptionist before you met Mr. Purbeck.
Yes.
Why did you give that all up and become his, maid of all work?
Because I believe in Simon Purbeck.
As a medium?
Yes.
Nevertheless, isn't it true that your present job pays much better than being a receptionist?
All we get is living expenses.
You haven't answered my question, Miss Marcos. In financial terms, and you do handle the money, don't you? Doesn't spiritualism pay much better than being a receptionist or selling encyclopedias?
Is that a crime?
Just answer the question, yes or no, Miss Marcos.
Yes.
It does pay better?
Yes.
Now, you're one of the 3 office holders of this trust that controls the Centre for the Study of Spiritual Sciences.
Yes.
What are spiritual sciences?
Those sciences connected with spiritualism and the spirit world.
And how many people are studying at the centre at the moment?
What?
How many students are studying at the centre at the moment?
Well, actually none at the moment, but we hope in the course of time to have people using the facilities.
What facilities?
We have a library.
Oh, how many books does it contain?
I don't know offhand.
Well, give us an approximation. Does it contain 50 books?
I couldn't say.
1,000 books?
I don't know.
You're quite sure there are some books in this library, Miss Marcos?
Yes.
What other facilities has this centre to offer the student of spiritual sciences?
Mostly just accommodation at the moment.
And at the moment, how many people are making use of this accommodation?
The centre's only been in operation for about a year.
Just answer the question, please, Miss Marcos. How many people are living at the Pines, West Walsham?
Mr. Purbeck and myself and the Italian couple who look after the place.
How large is the house? How many rooms are there?
About 14, I think.
Does that include a staff flat?
No, there's also a small staff flat.
The Pines, West Walsham could hardly be called overcrowded then, could it? Miss Marcos, in answer to my learned friend, you observed that spiritualism attracted all kinds of people. Some sincere, some mere sensation seekers. What I think you described as, what was the phrase you used?
The hysterical and unstable fringe.
What a memory you have, Miss Marcos. Nevertheless, isn't it a fact that you were trained to recognize hysterics and instability?
I should like to think I could recognize an unstable personality when I saw one, yes. Which may account for the fact that until Mrs. Wells came onto the scene, we had no complaints at all from any clients.
In fact, you personally vetted all the clients?
Nearly all.
And apart from those who you would describe as, well, your word again, troublesome, what else did you vet these clients for?
I don't know what you mean.
Didn't you vet these clients in order to find out what they were worth?
No.
Oh, come, Miss Marcos, you surely don't expect the jury to believe that financial considerations did not come into your choice of client.
Money played no part in it at all.
All right. How did you conduct this vetting? Did you ask questions?
Yes.
What sort of questions?
Well, mostly about the reasons why they came to see Simon in the first place. Was it curiosity or because they'd lost a loved one?
And you asked them their name and address?
Yes.
And where they worked?
Sometimes, if it seemed important.
Well, I submit, Miss Marcos, given this information, plus the fact of having the person in question in front of you, a person of your experience and intelligence would would have no difficulty in arriving at a fair assessment of the financial status of the potential client. Now, is it not true, Miss Marcos, that these private seances with Mr. Purbeck were almost exclusively the privilege of your more wealthy clients?
No.
How many clients had private seances?
Very few.
And of these clients who had private seances, like Mrs. Wells, how many would you describe as wealthy?
I couldn't say. We didn't ask to see their bank balances.
Oh, come, Miss Marcos, you vetted the people. You don't expect the jury to believe that you don't know the difference between rich and poor.
Well, of course I do, but most of our clientele's drawn from the middle income bracket.
And did all these people make contributions to the centre?
When they could.
How much did these contributions and gifts amount to in a year?
I don't know.
Didn't you keep any records?
Why should I? They were gifts.
Well, Mrs. Wells has said in evidence that over a period of 2 years, she contributed a house worth between £30,000 and £35,000, plus between £8,000 and £9,000 in cash. Now, this works out at approximately £20,000 a year. Now, I take it that this was not a typical contribution.
No.
Then what was, Miss Marcos?
I don't know.
But you handled the financial side, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Kimber has said in evidence that the total assets of the trust at the moment, including the value of the house, is approximately £44,000. Now, do you agree with this figure?
If Mr. Kimber says that, it must be right.
And £44,000 is almost exactly the total value of what Mrs. Wells contributed. Now, what the court would like to know, Miss Marcos, is what has happened to the rest of the money? The money from the other clients who you so carefully vetted.
It went on expenses.
What kind of expenses, Miss Marcos? Living expenses for you and Mr. Purbeck?
Partly. The rest will have gone on hiring halls, accommodation, heating, lighting, printing posters. We didn't always have Mrs. Wells's house to use for seances. We had to rent accommodation. Being a medium can be very expensive.
Obviously. Thank you, Miss Marcos.
Firstly, Miss Marcos, regarding the centre's library, would you say it was adequately stocked at the moment?
I would, yes.
Thank you. Now, you say you kept no record of gifts.
No.
Why didn't you?
Because Mr. Purbeck believes that spiritualism and bookkeeping don't mix.
Miss Marcos, did any of your clients ever complain about the luxury in which you and Mr. Purbeck lived?
No, because there wasn't any luxury to complain about.
Did Mr. Purbeck ever turn away any clients because they were poor?
No.
But he did turn people away?
Yes, but not because they hadn't any money. We turned away people whom we thought unsuitable or who wouldn't fit in with Simon's way of running seances. That's all.
Thank you, Miss Marcos.
Thank you, Miss Marcos. You may stand down.
I call Miss Rachel Sullivan.
Miss Rachel Sullivan.
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read out aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Rachel Sullivan?
Yes.
Where do you live?
37A Berry Street, Fulchester.
What is your occupation?
Well, I'm retired now, but I used to be a school teacher.
Which school?
I used to be principal Latin teacher at St. Oswith's Girls' School, Fulchester.
Miss Sullivan, you are interested in spiritualism?
Yes.
Have you been interested for long?
About 15 or 20 years. It was my dear friend, she's dead now, alas, who first took me along to seances.
15 to 20 years? You must have attended a great many seances in that time.
Oh, yes, a great many.
And observed many mediums in action?
Yes, indeed, probably about 30 or 40.
And you are now one of Mr. Purbeck's regular clients?
I've been going to Simon Purbeck for nearly 4 years.
What is your opinion of him as a medium?
I think without doubt that he's the finest natural medium I have ever seen. There's no act with him, no personality cult, if you follow me. Well, I mean, he's the only medium I've ever seen who will suddenly stop in the middle of a séance and say, I'm sorry, the power has gone, I can't do any more. It really is most unusual.
I'm sure it is, Miss Sullivan. Is that why you've gone to him so regularly?
Partly, and partly because when my dear friend died, I tried to get into contact with her through various mediums. She was a Christian Scientist and a spiritualist, and I knew if it was at all possible she would communicate with me. But she didn't. I saw a lot of mediums, some of them genuine, some of them charlatans and frauds. And then I heard of Simon Purbeck, and I went to see him. And Evadne spoke to me.
Did Mr. Purbeck charge you for the seances?
Oh, no. Oh, no, he makes no charge at all.
But he must have paid something.
Well, if you can afford it, you can make some small financial contribution, but you're not forced to.
Now, what happens if you don't contribute?
Nothing.
Nothing at all? Can you still attend the seances?
Oh, yes, provided you've been a regular, of course. Well, I mean, for the past year, ever since I've been retired, it was on account of my asthma, you know. I've paid no contributions at all. Well, I simply couldn't afford it on a small pension. I was going to give up going to the seances, but Mr. Purbeck insisted that I continue. Yes, I pay nothing.
Thank you, Miss Sullivan.
Miss Sullivan, am I correct in presuming that you're not a wealthy woman?
I am certainly not.
And that you own no property?
No.
And you have no private income or personal fortune?
No.
But even though you cannot afford it, Mr. Purbeck still allows you to attend his seances.
That is correct.
What seances are these?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Well, are these the public seances, Miss Sullivan, or, like Mrs. Wells, do you attend private seances? Do you see Mr. Purbeck alone or in the company of others?
I attend the public seances and occasionally one of his smaller ones.
And how many people usually attend his public seances?
100.
And the smaller ones?
Half a dozen, a dozen.
Have you ever had a seance with Mr. Purbeck alone?
No.
But then, as you said, Miss Sullivan, you have no property, no private income, and no personal fortune.
Miss Sullivan, have you ever asked Mr. Purbeck for a private seance?
No.
Do you know many people who have private seances with Mr. Purbeck?
No.
Miss Sullivan, with your extensive experience of seances and mediums, and in all the time you've been going to Mr. Purbeck, have you ever caught him in anything fraudulent?
I have not.
Thank you, Miss Sullivan.
Thank you, Miss Sullivan. You may stand down.
That concludes the case for the defence.
This seems a convenient time to adjourn. I will hear the speeches for the prosecution and defence after lunch.
All rise.
Mr. Dealey.
Members of the jury. A case like this is deeply disturbing, not only because there is a very considerable sum of money involved, but because a case like this involves people's deepest and most profoundly held beliefs. Anyone who has lost someone they loved has wondered if perhaps, somehow, one day they can ever hope to see that loved one again. And some people believe that not only this is possible, but that in fact they can actually communicate here and now with those who have died. Now, what is important here is that people find great comfort in these beliefs. But, inevitably, human nature being what it is, there are those who will ruthlessly and criminally exploit those beliefs for their own gains. Now, it was in order to protect the bereaved from these contemptible human predators that in 1951, Parliament passed the Fraudulent Mediums Act. And it is my contention, members of the jury, that Simon Purbeck is just such a predator, and that he deliberately and criminally exploited Mrs. Mary Wells to the tune of over £40,000. Now, let us consider the evidence, members of the jury. Mrs. Wells had lost her only son, and her desperate search for contact with him led her tragically to Simon Purbeck. Now, you may feel her quest was foolish, but foolish or not, she has every right to protection under the law. Now, fact. Purbeck had set up as a medium. Fact. A séance was arranged at which she gained the impression, and who can say how, that her dead son had touched her upon the shoulder. Well, she was ecstatic. At last her dream had come true. Now, who can blame her if she poured out her wealth on Simon Purbeck as a result of who knows what subtle pressures, hints, and suggestions? Now, Simon Purbeck, I contend, is a shrewd man. No one's fool. Rather than accept Mrs. Wells's money personally, which would have left him wide open for prosecution, he sets up a trust for some centre for the study of spiritual sciences. Now, I ask you, members of the jury, have you ever heard of these sciences? I have not. And I tell you that this centre is as much a fraud as the rest of his operation. Ask yourselves, shouldn't a centre for study contain some students? But this centre turns out to be no more than a free private home for Mr. Purbeck and his assistant. And if such a centre was in earnest, shouldn't its finances be a model of probity? But Miss Marcos has told us that they kept no records of all the monies given to them by clients. Now, Miss Marcos also states that she believed that Mrs. Wells was deceiving herself. And she also claims not to have discussed this with Mr. Purbeck, which seems hard to accept considering the closeness of their relationship. Yet, knowing this, they allowed Mrs. Wells to attend séances and to make vast contributions of money for over 2 years after that first séance. Now, I ask you, members of the jury, could you, believing that someone was deceiving themselves, accept over £20,000 a year from that person? I doubt it. It is my contention, members of the jury, that Simon Purbeck, with intent to deceive, set up as a spiritualistic medium for which he received reward. And I trust, therefore, members of the jury, that you will find him guilty of the charges against him.
Mr. Lotterby.
Your Honour, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we cannot fail to sympathise with Mrs. Wells in her need to contact her dead son. We can understand her joy when she believed she had made that contact. We can understand how bitterly disappointed she must have been when it was put into her head that that contact had been a fake. Because there is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that before she met Major Otway, Mrs. Wells believed she had achieved the one thing in life that held most meaning for her: contact with her dead son. So grateful is she that she pours out her money, uninvited and unasked for, to help set up a centre to study those same spiritual sciences which had brought about her happiness. But then she becomes greedy. Now, this is a lady who believes that her money will get her anything she wants. And what she wants is more and more of the medium's time. Mr. Purbeck cannot or will not give it her. Then the Major enters her life. Off with the old, on with the new. She is told that what she had yesterday is useless and valueless, and therefore the person from whom she bought is a criminal. She must take back all that she had so freely given. Ladies and gentlemen, we might well doubt Major Otway's motives. Now, about the motives of the accused, Simon Purbeck, I contend there is no doubt. He genuinely believes in himself as a medium, or, as he prefers it, a person sensitive to spiritual forces. We have heard the evidence of a witness with considerable experience of mediums and séances who tells us that Simon Purbeck is the finest natural medium she's ever seen. Certainly no one, not even Major Otway, has seen anything fraudulent in the conduct of his séances. The reward that Simon Purbeck received was to see his ideas and beliefs studied, an advance for future generations to help other people like Mrs. Wells. You will note that he was given a house worth £30,000 to £35,000. Well, he didn't sell it and make off with the loot. He set up a study centre. Now, the prosecution complains that this study centre is not yet in operation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my learned friend and I both went to the same university. A university which for the past 2 years has been planning to set up a school for theoretical astronomy. In 2 years' time, they hope to receive their first students for the new course. Well, no one has accused the university authorities of fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, neither can we accuse Simon Purbeck. I suggest you have no alternative but to find Simon Purbeck not guilty of the charges against him.
Members of the jury, I do not propose to repeat counsel's arguments which have been cogently and forcefully put. Instead, I propose to try and clarify the legal issues as I see them. Now, the Fraudulent Mediums Act is a fairly recent piece of legislation, and it has been comparatively little used. What I'm going to do, therefore, is to read those sections of the Act which concern us. Now, the Act states quite clearly that any person who, A, with intent to deceive, purports to act as a spiritualistic medium, or to exercise any powers of telepathy, clairvoyance, or other similar powers, or B, in purporting to act as a spiritualistic medium, or to exercise such powers as aforesaid, uses any fraudulent device, such a person shall be guilty of an offence. Now, the Act goes on to say, a person shall not be convicted of an offence under the foregoing unless it is proved that he acted for reward. And for the purposes of this section, a person shall be deemed to act for reward if any money is paid or other valuable thing given in respect of what he does, whether to him or to any other person. It's clear that you, members of the jury, have to decide on two matters. Firstly, whether Simon Purbeck purported to act as a spiritualistic medium with intent to deceive. And secondly, if he did so act, whether he acted for reward. Now, the question of reward is not really difficult at all. For as I see it, it makes no difference whether these various monies and the house were given to the accused or to a trust. And I direct you that the phrase, to any other person, be construed to include an abstract entity such as a trust. So then, we come back to the question, with intent to deceive. Now, the question of whether or not there was any intention to deceive is for you, members of the jury, and only you can decide. Now, you will now retire and consider your verdict.
All stand. Members of the jury, just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar, Simon Morris Purbeck, guilty or not guilty of the charge brought under the Fraudulent Mediums Act 1951?
Guilty.
That is the verdict of you all?
Yes.
Judge Bragg sentenced Purbeck to 12 months' imprisonment and also fined him £400. Next week, a chance for you to join another jury in assessing the facts when our cameras return to watch a leading case in the Crown Court.